So the Senate had three simultaneous Senate Appropriations Committee hearings touching on different things yesterday. And as my full-time gig, I monitor what goes on in the State House. So I had three different computers going at the same time to be able to capture all of the conversations that were happening about various state agencies seeking appropriations, and that's spending for the coming fiscal year. And one of the agencies was the governor's office requesting their annual appropriation for the governor's office. And they were talking about how much money they're requesting and so on. But it was kind of fascinating, too, to hear some of the questions that came out that weren't necessarily directly related with how much the governor's office wants to spend. It is the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop, 217-629-7970. That's how you can chime in live and local. But the governor's office with the chief of staff, Ann Caprara, presenting their requested spending amount. You had a different line of questioning, though, from a state senator, Brian Stewart from Freeport, Republican. He asked a pretty pointed question about the issue of COVID-19 restrictions and continued COVID-19 mitigation, saying that vaccines are widely available, saying that therapeutics are widely available. And Caprara said that she's hopeful. She's hopeful that we could be through some of the worst of COVID-19.
That this last round of Omicron is praying to God that it is our last, and that we could see a more normal return to life in the next 6 months.
So, again, that was just some of what was brought up yesterday. You're hearing that it could be 6 months before we see all COVID restrictions lifted. And one thing that I think Senator Stewart was highlighting was how when the governor had his Reopen Illinois plan back in the summer of 2020, remember all the way back then, the plan would have lifted all COVID restrictions, where he was throttling business, saying that you could only have 25% capacity depending on the region, depending on how many COVID cases there were, and so on. You remember all of that. And the governor put out that 5-stage plan, I think it was. And the final stage, phase 5, was when therapies were widely available or when vaccines are widely available. And it seems that we have both of those. But still, the governor's office saying it could still be 6 months. Something else I wanted to highlight here was kind of fascinating, a line of questioning that Senator Stewart brought about dealing with the case of private dollars being used by the Pritzker wealth to pay top staff. We'll review some of that top staff pay here in a moment, but I wanted you to hear some of the exchange back and forth between State Senator Brian Stewart and the governor's chief of staff, Ann Caprara.
You know, the private pay for public sector work, certainly creates kind of a slippery slope, for this. And just kind of curious on what your continued thoughts are for the private pay, for public work.
Everybody who is involved with that has to follow all of the ethical standards that the office sets across the board and for the administration. Everyone in the governor's office obviously serves at the pleasure of the governor and is held to the highest ethical standards. And so, and we as an employer, we continue to deal with the same market conditions that other employers in the state deal with, and retaining people and attracting people. And I think the governor, his priorities are retaining and attracting the best possible people to work for state government and to work for his office personally.
If I was to pay staff out of my own pocket, and then while they were getting state pay and they were expected to get and do state duties, it's just a slippery slope, and certainly have continued reservations, about that.
So again, that was Brian Stewart, state senator from Freeport, asking the governor's chief of staff, Ann Caprara, about this private pay that the governor's giving 15 of his top staff. And when you look at the breakdown, this is all from the East Jackson Street LLC, the East Jackson Street LLC. And the governor's been doing this since he took office with these funds that ultimately are his own private dollars. And I'm going to pull up here where you can see some of the salaries. And in particular, you're looking at $3.1 million total. But half of that's from the state taxpayers, and the other half is from the East Jackson Street LLC. And it's pretty high price. You're talking about Ann Caprera in particular getting nearly $300,000 to be the chief of staff for the governor. Taxpayers are only picking up $148,000 of that. The governor's paying $150,000 of that. But you could see here some of the breakdown of those top 15 staff and how much money they're actually getting from the governor versus taxpayers. And it begs the question, it's a slippery slope, as Senator Stewart says. Where do these individuals' allegiance lie? With the governor as an individual or with state taxpayers? Much more coming up. Stay tuned.
From the Fly SPI studios, take the easy way out. Stay